Hi everyone, and welcome to this session on culture. I know a lot of you would be thinking about culture, and we all feel we know culture, but as an organization, what is culture? What is personality? How do you build it? And this is what we'll be covering in this session. So if people are treated consistently in terms of basic assumptions, they come eventually to behave according to those assumptions in order to make their world stable and predictable. And that's what Douglas McGregor said. Now, what does that mean? The whole thing is we have to ensure that the organization has a particular strategy and the culture of the company supports that strategy. If you have a different kind of a culture and you have a strategy which is completely different, chances are that there would be so much of stress within the organization because people wouldn't know what to behave, what is going to be the behavior which is expected, what should be rewarded, etc. It leads to nothing but the complete annihilation of the strategy. Now, there's someone who said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That means you can say anything you want. If your culture doesn't support it, you might have any strategy. You might want to promote any kind of a belief system, but if it remains only as a thought process, it can just cramp growth. So your culture has to support exactly what the strategy is supposed to achieve. So what is organizational culture? Organization culture is the common beliefs, values, perceptions which are held by members of an organization, a system of shared meaning. That means every organization has a certain set of common beliefs. If I'm looking at a company which is into customer service, then the customer is God, becomes part of the culture. They'll do anything to go that extra mile for that customer. We have n number of examples like that. If you take a 5-star hotel and you say, yes, the customer is king, then the customer is king. But imagine if the culture doesn't support it. You might say customer is king, and when a customer comes, you don't care. Then that's going to lead to a lot of problems. I think you understand that. It's an operating system of the company, the organizational DNA. That means it is the DNA of every individual who works within the organization. Every policy has to carry that same thought forward, which is part of the culture. If I see, it guides how employees think, act, and feel, which is very, very critical, which means that the employees should be able to just fall in sync with whatever the culture is trying to say. That means even before they actually start doing something, they have already processed it as a method of structuring their thoughts. What are the functions of culture now? Workers are shaped by the culture in which they work and in turn make the culture. Now this is like obvious. If I'm working in a culture which is very customer friendly, I become customer friendly, otherwise I won't survive. I'll be so unhappy, right? So workers learn how to fit in within a culture, and they also in turn ensure that they propagate the same values and the principles and the same behaviors by living through them, by letting the culture live through them. Culture's functions also determines how people interact, how to treat with each other, how they communicate, and how they talk with each other, how open they are, how hard they work, are they loyal, are they going to be loyal, what kind of behavior are they going to put up with, etc. Now, let's just look at this point. There was a client I was working with at some point, and there was this gentleman who joined the company at a very senior level, and he had this habit of getting extremely angry and expressing it by shouting at people. Now, in a lot of companies, it would be tolerated because he was a very good performer. He came from a great lineage. He was well known. But in this company, I can't name the company, but he was fired. He was given one warning for shouting, and he was told, please do not shout. The second time, again he shouted, and that was his last working day. Now, culturally, they kind of made a statement and said, this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated. Now, the next guy who ever thinks of shouting is going to see that and never, I mean, obviously he wouldn't, it becomes a culture. You will not shout. You will think of expressing it in different ways. So if you look at it, culture determines how people interact, how they treat each other, how they communicate. All of it is, planned or decided by the cultural values of the place. It attracts people to the organization or drives them away. For instance, if you're working with a company which is very hard-headed, masculine culture, it's about catching up and, very competitive. There's many people who would love to work in that kind of a culture, whereas there are some people who would like to work in a nice, friendly atmosphere. For them, it's not the money as much as the cultural place, that, okay, I'm safe here, nobody's going to attack me. Now, obviously, you're going to attract people because you have a cultural personality, everybody knows it, your ads will show it, people will know about you as a company, and it will attract the right people and drive away people who don't fit in. It conveys a sense of identity for its members. Yes. If I think of, you think of certain, let's say you're talking about a coffee shop, you think of Starbucks, you expect people to be friendly. So the people who come in, the sense of identity is, we're here to help the customers, we're there to make you feel good. Or let's say if I'm working with a company which is very hard sell and very professional, tough types. So the person's sense of identity has to be the same, that I am a tough person and I don't believe in all this oversweet behavior. So culture's functions is just that, to convey a sense of identity. It should attract people. It should define the kind of behavior people will display towards each other. And all the people in the company would know, without perhaps being even told, what kind of behavior would be expected of them as they work. With this, it automatically facilitates the generation of a commitment which is much larger than just working working for yourself. So from a basic employee, if I belong to this, if I get a sense of identity, I feel attract people, all those things put together is going to give you something much larger. There is a bonding which happens, which goes beyond the self-interest, and for the company, it is one of the best things that you can ever do, because then you don't have attrition unnecessarily. You almost become like slightly cultish in that way.